Alright.
Alright.
Wife, kids.
Right. So I can't remember the last time we had this many agents in one place. So
Yeah, this is because of
yeah,
me.
this should be a new tradition now going forward. So I'm happy to have John Malekak over here. John and I go back. Before that, you were working for Toronto Real Estate Board. Yeah, and then you're now working with you were coaching, and now you're working with Integra. So to my surprise, when I went to Remax Recharge, I found him over there teaching. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So. We had a conversation, and he graciously accepted doing a whole series of trainings for our office. This is the first one. We also have FinTrack coming up, and we have a couple more.
We have a couple that we've set.
Yeah. So we have them coming throughout the year. So without further ado, John.
All right.
Take it
Thanks
away.
so much. Thanks,
Thank
Addy. Before I actually get started, I do want to introduce someone to you. Her name is Sharon. Sharon's right here. Sharon Montgomery has also now been added to our learning development roster. She's a real estate and a sales and marketing guy, right? Well, that's a whole other story because for my first 8 months, I made tons of mistakes. I spent 10 years as a real estate professional. My life right now, I was a coach in real estate, a consultant in real estate, a trainer in real estate, and I did that for the Toronto Real Estate Board along with the Durham Board and the Barrie Board. So I've trained in a number of different areas in real estate. So I've written about 40 courses, so there's a lot of experience. And now Remax Integra's picked me up, as Addy mentioned. So now I, along with Sharon, just write and train. Are we good? Now, has anyone suffered through a class with me before in the past? You have? Yeah, you look from where?
Syntax. You, sorry,
okay.
Yeah, the main office.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job the first time around.
No.
You got it.
It was so good I came back second.
Okay, excellent. Good save, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, great. So today we're going to be talking about the ABC business plan. So it's action plan, business plan, and CRMs. And we're going to learn a few things today. One, we're going to learn what it means to create what's called a SMART goal. People have created goals in the past, and that's great. But there are people who have not been very successful with following through on those goals. So today we're going to try and figure out what it means to create an effective goal by making it SMART, S-M-A-R-T. I call it a closure report. You want to make sure that we close out your year so that you know what you have to do upcoming in 2019. You can't really focus on what you want to do in the future or present or future, 2019 now, until you realize what you've done in the past. We're going to schedule and create a scheduled action plan for you so that you know what you're doing every day you wake up. And then, of course, we're going to talk about CRM, the consumer relationship management tool, why it's important to have structured client communication. A lot of, let's say you have, again, 40 people in your database. It's how you communicate with them effectively that will help you get referrals. When I left Bell Canada, I left with 400 people in my database, people that I could easily go and communicate with and show off that I'm a real estate professional now. By month 8, I realized that I was 7, sorry. By month 7, I was doing everything wrong. I didn't have someone telling me what to do, so what I did was I literally deleted 360 names in my 7th month of real estate. I was left with how many? 40 people. But those 40 people I learned how to communicate with effectively, they got me my referrals for my next 7 years. So it's not about volume, it's about how you communicate with your people. And we're going to talk about that when we discuss the CRM. You all have one? Great. We're going to be using this book throughout this class to make sure you have a scheduled action plan of what it is you need to do to make sure you reach your goals. Right? So again, an action plan is a document that outlines the process that helps you focus on the ideas that contribute to your end goals. It's an overall state. There's another book right here. So. And then we have an action plan because of this myth that everyone seems to want to achieve but fail at it, called a work-life balance. A lot of us want this, and a lot of us find ourselves working more than we need to, okay? Because here's the thing, we're not working efficiently. We work hard. Everyone says work hard. My dad said you got to work hard in life. I wish my dad said you've got to work smart in life. Because that makes more sense, doesn't it? Work smart and efficiently. You don't have to work hard. You can be very smart about how you carry on your day. I'll show you how you do that. But here's the thing about a work-life balance. You have to first understand this idea of time. Time is fixed. You can't change time. Let's just be honest. We all have the same 168 hours a week. You don't have more, you don't have less. We all share 168. Now, Everyone gets 8 hours of sleep a night, right? You know? Let's assume you do. I know some people get more, some people get less, but let's assume you get 8 hours. That's 56 hours a week of sleep. I'm not including your nap times. I'm just talking about just sleep at night. You're left with 112. That's all you're left with. Which means, how do you split up the 112 hours that you get a week of awake time? Is it 56 hours in your personal life, and is it 56 hours in your professional life? It's you live a personal life. Your professional life takes the majority of your time. But is it going to be 100 hours of your professional life and 12 hours in your personal life? No, it shouldn't be that way. So you want to come to balance, right? So let me show you how that's going to work out. First of all, this is your homework number 1. This is not in the book, by the way. So I want you to do this. I want you to create 4 columns. This is your homework. I'm being very serious. I want you to create a personal column, and then beside that, put hours per week. Hours per week. I want you to identify how much time you're spending on your professional life and in your personal life. So what you're going to do is you're going to understand how long does it take you on a weekly basis to do things like laundry for your personal life, your meal prep. How much time does it take you to eat your meals? Are you the type of person who really wants to settle down and enjoy your meal and it takes you an hour every meal to eat? Is that you? Put down the amount of time you spend eating. Your travel time. How much time are you spending with your kids, either driving them to events or to activities, practices, dance, family? How much time do you spend on your computer, socially, your personal social media, your personal emails, the internet? How much time do you spend doing these things? Now keep in mind, there's a lot more here that I don't have listed, but I'm giving you ideas of what you need to identify. Then what I want you to do is do the same thing for your professional life. How much time do you spend on professional courses? How much time do you spend with your professional emails? How much time do you spend doing admin work? Filing and creating contracts and creating new listing presentations or your marketing plan. Social media, how much time are you spending on your professional social media? Your MLS, how much time do you spend just on MLS? And then your listing activities. Do you door knock? Do you outbound call? Do you spend time meeting people face to face? Right? Are you spending time making outbound calls to your database so that you can get a two-way conversation? Figure out what it is you do and identify the number of hours you do them. It's 70 hours and 42 hours. Is that the case? And if that is the case, then that's a nice work-life balance for you, then leave it. That's fine. But I guarantee you a lot of you are going to be shocked. One way or another, you're going to find that you're spending more time here, and a lot of it's because of this, okay, and less time here. That's why you're busy, but you're not productive, okay? Some of you might see this 80 hours, okay? And this is a different, again, 32, okay? And that's because, again, you probably spend a lot of time on this, or your admin work, okay, or your MLS. Just because you're behind, I call it being behind a computer because you're hiding behind a computer. You're not actually out doing anything. But the more time you spend behind your computer, the less you have time to be successful out there. Unless your business is run on social media, which you effectively run and set up. Okay? Just do this for me, or actually do it for yourself, and identify where you're spending time. That's homework number 1. Now, when it comes to goal setting, this is just an overview. We want to understand why can they be effective and how do you create a smart goal. So the first thing I want to identify with you is why you need them. Okay? So here's an example of your life without goals. Now, most of you have lived this life. I have lived this life where I wake up every morning saying, what am I doing today? You can't do that. If you wake up every morning asking, what am I going to do today? That's a problem because you're not starting the day off with a focus. You need to really know how you're going to start your day. And how do you do that? My tip to you, which I taught in the, actually I taught this in another class, but you have to wake up knowing what you're doing. So close out your day. Tonight, before you go to bed, on a piece of paper, just write down what you did, and then tomorrow morning you're going to write down the first 3 things you're going to do after you've woken up, got dressed, taken the kids to school or wherever, exercised, had breakfast. What are the 3 things you're going to do next? And it's really simple. Tonight, before you go to bed, all you're going to do is just brainstorm what are the things you have to do tomorrow. And you're going to identify them A's and B's. And then you're going to go A1, A2, A3. I typically don't go beyond A3. And then my next priority is B, B1, B2, B3. Okay? So typically when I wake up in the morning, I know exactly where my focus is. That's how you start your day. All right? Not like this. What am I going to do? If you've lived a life without focus, it's again, a life of inefficiency. You're panicked and you're confused. Cloudy decision making. Here again is my life when I've lived a life without focus. I will be in a slump. Okay? Who here's ever been in a slump? Anyone? I have. So Addie and I are the only ones in this room of brilliant people that we've been in a slump, right? Okay. So you need help. But here's what Addie and I will do when we're walking through the halls of your office. We will hear someone say, oh, I just joined this coaching program and it's working out really well. So remember, I'm in a life of panic and confusion. So I turn around and say, what coaching program is that? I'll write a check, I'll join the coaching program, it doesn't work, right? Then I'll walk through the halls and I'll hear this, oh, I'm using AdWorks and it's working out, I've got all these leads. Or write a check for AdWorks and it doesn't work. Has anyone ever lived this life where you're just throwing money to things that you hope is going to work for you?
Yeah.
Cloudy decision making. Please don't do that, okay? Your business in this scenario is reactive, and you don't want a reactive business. You want a business that's sustainable. Full disclosure right now, before I get into this takes work. Work is a four-letter word that everyone finds offensive, right? But you've got to work. But when you live this life, when you get to this life of a sustainable business, your life becomes so much easier. You are now waking up with a focus. You've got better use of your resources. You're not just wasting your resources on things that you hope is going to work out for you. Okay? Better decision making, increased productivity, okay? Focused communications. This is where you should now say, you know what? I've got 2 BRAs signed. I've got a listing, I've got 3 deals waiting to close, I'm at peace right now. This is the best time for you to actually go out, and I'm going to say another word I hate, prospect. Okay? Because you've got better decision making, you're in a more relaxed scenario here. When you're speaking with someone, when you're either door knocking or outbound calling, or you just say hi to someone out in a coffee shop, if they tell you, okay, in the worst of terms, to leave, you can say, okay, not a problem. You don't take it personally. You might be able to make a joke of that and turn that person around because you're relaxed. Okay? The best way you can communicate with people, especially if you're trying to get business, is in the most relaxed state. You're not in a panic. Okay, so this does take some time, but once you get here, your life will become so much easier. And I'm going to try and show you how to get to this part. And that's one, first of all, we want you to look at your life by having goals. Okay? Now, a Harvard Business Study said that 80% of the population, they don't have goals. 14% they do have goals, but they don't write them down. Only 3% of the population write down their goals. And you may think it's corny, but it really isn't, because the study also found that the 14% who have goals are 10 times more successful than those without the goals, and the 3% with the written goals are actually 3 times more successful than the 14% who don't write them down. So you've got to make your goals tangible. Tangible in the sense that you can touch it, you can feel it. So here's what I mean, and I'll go through that again in a second, but please have your goals, write them down so that you can see them and you can touch them. Now, a SMART goal. A lot of us have created goals in the past. Like I said, we've all been there. I'm not the first person to stand in front of you and say you've got to have goals. But a lot of us don't actually understand what goes into creating a really effective goal. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Okay? Before we get into this, I just want to point out one thing. There are a number of very successful people out there who will tell you, oh, you've got to dream big. Have big dreams, blah, 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 blah. Dream big, right? Actually, Lotto backs, and the Lotterio actually tells you. Have you seen those commercials? Yeah. Dream big, okay? I've always believed that dreams are for people who are asleep, okay? And the bigger your dreams, the deeper your sleep. Okay? I'm one to say be realistic about what you're doing in life and have small attainable goals that roll up to a larger goal. So the more you can attain those smaller goals, the more momentum you have in your business that you will ultimately achieve that monthly goal, that quarterly goal, that half-year goal, that yearly goal. Okay? It's all about things you do when you're awake, right? So let's talk about this. The first thing I want you to do is understand, again, what a SMART goal is. So we're going to look at, sorry, I'm just trying to find my cursor here, which I can't find. Is it over here? Oh, there it is. That's why it's there. There we go. S stands for specific. Okay? And a specific goal, okay, is exactly what that says. So you can't say to yourself, I will have all the money I need to live comfortably this quarter. Makes no sense. Because you can redefine comfortably, right? But if you say to yourself, I'm going to have $30,000 in gross commission earned this quarter, that's a specific goal. Which means it actually drives you to do things to get $30,000 in gross commission income this quarter. January, February, March. Okay? You can't redefine $30,000. $30,000 gross commission income is $30,000. Right? Measurable. A poor example is, I'm going to sell a lot of houses this quarter. Okay? Again, not specific enough, not measurable enough. But if you say, I'm going to sell 10% more homes in Q1 2019 than I did in Q2 2018 and Q1 2018, year over year, quarter over quarter, year over year, my mistake, I'll be 10% above in 2019. That's a measurable goal. You can measure that. Again, it's not vague that you can redefine later, which is what a lot of us do. We create goals that we can redefine later. We don't want to do that. Okay? Achievable. So achievable, I look at and I think about again, just being realistic to what it is that you are trying to get to. There's one particular person that I worked with, and again, true story, when I was coaching, he said, I'm going to be, it's one of my favorite stories, I'm going to be the top listing agent in Mississauga, and I think it was the year 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So we were talking in 2015, 2016, he was going to be the top listing agent in Mississauga. So I said to this person, listen, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I do want to talk about this particular goal here, because there's a couple of things that I need you to clarify for me. So I said to this person, one, very ambitious goal, two, you're part-time, and three, you just got your license like 7 months ago. So can we talk about how you are going to be the #1 listing person in Mississauga when you have to compete against people who are very established? Oh, I know a lot of people. Yeah, but so does Addy, right? And so does Cher, right? And so do a lot of you. You know a lot of people, and you're far more experienced than someone who just got their license 7 months ago. What are you going to do to become the #1 salesperson? So we talked it out. And he said, you know what? Maybe a better goal would be that I'd be in the top 5 of my office in listings. Maybe I can do that. I said, that makes a little bit more sense. That is far more achievable. If you start creating goals for yourself that are way too far out there in terms of reach, you will lose what's called momentum and motivation. And when you lose both of those, you've given up. You will give up a lot easier than if you were to just set realistic, achievable goals that you can attain. And again, maintain that motivation and momentum. Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah? All right. Realistic. So I look at realistic and I think about things like the marketplace. So another one of my students, they wanted to make sure that they maintain the same income level for the next year. Okay? And we said, okay, well fine, let's look at what you're doing. But the market shifted. So when the market shifts, you don't have as many buyers, you may not have as many listings. But he still wanted to hit this income level. He wanted to, at the end of that year, be at this number. And I said, okay, well, what else can we do? He says, I don't know. I said, well, why don't you look at your expenses? Do you need to spend as much money in expenses this year than you did the previous year? Because that's the only other place you're going to cut. If you've already adjusted for buyers and sellers for the market, the only other place you can cut is expenses. So don't forget, it's not just about buyers, sellers, and your and the life of real estate. You can look to your expenses and cut those where you can. All right. So a good example of this is, Some of you may be printing everything and everything at home. I used to do that. Right? Laser toner is expensive. Okay? So maybe you cut back on that. Maybe you cut back on some of your advertising that isn't working after you've given it a good shot. Maybe you cut back on some of your driving expenses. Right? Be a little bit smarter when you jump in your smarter when you jump into your car. So look at your expenses and see how those can offset the market itself. That make sense? Okay. And then timely. I've already touched on timely in some of the other ingredients here. Make sure you've got a time associated with your goal. Okay? Don't just say, I'm going to get my luxury designation in 2019. Okay, well, that makes no sense because 2019 is a long year. Here's what's going to happen if you say this. November's going to roll around and you didn't even sign up for the course. So when you say something like, I'm going to get a luxury designation or a senior's designation, what you need to do is you need to identify when that's actually going to happen. Okay, and we're going to cover this again, but I'll give you a little hint. You don't say, I'm going to get the designation in 2019. You say, I'm going to sign up for the first course on this day. Okay, so whenever it comes to courses and designations, your time around that is, when does the first course start and when do I need to be signed up for it? That's when you put, that's the date you put down. Okay. Does that make sense? Questions so far? Comments? Rude remarks? Are we okay? My only goal is that you learn 2 things that you didn't know before you sat down. So hopefully that'll work out today. Okay? All right. And again, with ineffective goals, it's really straightforward because they weren't smart. So an ineffective goal is, it's too big. You can't boil the ocean. Don't do that. Make it realistic. And here's the beauty about a realistic goal. Once you achieve your realistic goal for the week, reward yourself. Reward yourself with something that is relative to the success of meeting those goals or those action plans for the week. Now, what I do, again, to be a little bit specific here, because again, now I'm going to touch on too many, is I don't set too many goals. When I was actively practicing, a weekly a goal for